Good morning and welcome to San Diego People. I'm Alan Denton. Today we're looking at a newer way of rehabilitation called restorative justice and how it can help give DUI offenders a second chance. Joining me today, Mary Acosta, Program Manager of the Restorative Justice Mediation Program, and Matilda Casas, a Supervising Probation Officer from the San Diego County Probation DUI Enforcement Unit. Thank you both for being with us today. Mary, let me begin with you. What is this program all about? Help our viewers understand what it actually does.
Well, maybe I'll start with what is restorative justice. It's in the news quite a bit lately. Restorative justice is basically an approach to dealing with offenses, especially crimes, where you bring the parties together that have been affected, and they are able to discuss what happened, how the offense affected them, and find ways to make things right. And repair those harms to the extent possible. And
there's for a program set up for the juveniles and also for adults in this situation, right?
Well, the Restorative Justice Mediation Program, where I work, we've been around for 25 years, primarily working with juveniles in property offenses, burglaries, thefts, some assaults, vandalism. And now we are working also with the adult probation in DUI with injury cases.
Matilda, what's your role with this program?
My role as a probation officer with the County of San Diego, overall our mission statement is achieving our mission statement, which is public safety, assisting victims through offender accountability and rehabilitation, and obviously reducing crime. With this mediation program, our main focus was just that, to bring the offender and the victim together and to come to some type of agreement and to eventually reduce those crimes that could possibly be committed. And by assisting victims, they become whole and they come to an agreement of what, more than anything, their satisfaction of this criminal justice system.
How many cases are typically referred to this program on an annual basis?
Well, what happens, I look at different, all the DUI with injuries that came through for the year, which was more than I want to discuss here, but there's most of our DUIs that come through, I would say 80% of our DUIs are DUI with injuries. And I get anywhere between an average of maybe up to 400 cases a year. So given that, I refer about 80%, but I take a good look at the case and see if it's going to be appropriate, according to the victim, the injuries, and the offender. At that point, the probation officer will take a look at the case. Probation officers are trained to be case managers as well as the reinforcement part. So they look closely at the offender and see if that offender is ready to move on to this.
You may have just answered my next question in part of your response there, but I'm still going to, based on the guidelines, how do you get into the program?
Okay. Well, ultimately, the probation officer makes that determination if the offender is ready to meet with their victim before we can move on to having an agreement from the victim, because with the Restorative Justice Mediation Program, there has to be an agreement. It's a voluntary program. We can't direct them to do it or order them to do it if they're not ready. We don't want to re-victimize victims. So ultimately, our probation officers are the ones that really know that offender to make that determination on, typically a victim of a crime that has to be also ready to meet with that offender. But the first point of contact would be our offender, see if he's ready for that.
I was curious too, we were talking earlier before we went on the air that this doesn't always necessarily involve a first offender, does it? It can be a second offender or on down the line. Help me understand how the person gets into the program, if it's a second or third offender.
It could, honestly, that's not one of the things that determines if they're a good referral to the program. It's gonna be if that offender is ready to move on to meet the victim. And if it's actually going to be a positive outcome at least that we believe, the probation officer believes that it's going to be a positive outcome.
Mary, what does this mean for juveniles who've been referred to the program?
For the juveniles who participate, really it's an opportunity for them to take responsibility for what they've done, to sometimes have that opportunity to apologize, to explain themselves, and then to take some accountability for what they did to make things right, to make or enter into an agreement with the victim right there on how that would look like, whether it's restitution, maybe having them do some community service work for the victim, an apology. We've had some cases where other people are involved too, and it might extend outside of that.
And I guess that is the ultimate goal, in that you want to try to bring the victim and the offender together.
Yes, definitely. But like Matilda said, you know, victims also need to be ready. Not all cases, especially the more serious cases, are victims ready to make that encounter, to come together.
And I guess the key here too is also victim-offender dialogue. I mean, that's vital for this program to be successful, right? Do you want to expound on that?
Yeah, through the process, we give both parties an opportunity to explain for the offender what they did. What did you do? How did this affect you? Get the details out. Let them explain themselves. And then to give the victim opportunity to say, how did this impact me?
Yeah.
And sometimes, a lot of times, especially with young people, they don't realize the impact that they've had on someone else. They're surprised, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I hurt so many people, or I affected so many people's lives, or did so much damage to someone's, you know, goods. And just that realization really does help. And then just coming to a respectful place where we can come together and dialogue as people. And not just a criminal case number or in a court that's sometimes a little bit more formal or impersonal. They're able to say what they need to, ask questions.
Matilda, we've talked about how people get into the program, but initially does the offender in this case, do they come to you and say, I want to be in the program? Or do you just look at the case and say, you know, this person qualifies for the restorative program?
Okay, one of the things that I looked at, it's all because this was a pilot program specifically with DUI offenders, is that all the DUI with injuries, I looked at closely and to see who their victim was. For example, if it was someone, you know, that was related to them, obviously that would not be a good referral. Or someone that I knew that you know, maybe if it was an underage person with an adult, I was not going to make that referral. We had discussions before we actually refer them, you know, to the probation officer to review the case to see if it was appropriate. So that's kind of how we took a look at it. The other thing that I want to mention is that Mary kind of touched on it, was that during the court process, this is what's so different from our traditional criminal justice system process, is that the victim, yes, they get a chance to speak in the courtroom, but there's a lot of emotion going on during the courtroom.
Yeah.
So this is, some time has passed, has lapsed, and now you get to meet this person and you see that this is a human being, and vice versa. Not the offender, you know, they don't have their attorney kind of giving them hints of what to answer, but now they're being who they are.
Yeah, you see the real person in that situation.
And I think victims value this from every offender, because in the courtroom they said they were not guilty. Well, not, they're admitting to what they did. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've seen, that this program has affected both parties. And ultimately, I think it's because the admission of, yes, I did something wrong and I want to do something different now.
All right, we want to continue our conversation a little bit later in the program. We'll talk to both of you again. But still ahead on San Diego People, we want to take an in-depth look at a case study of restorative justice. A man arrested for driving drunk behind the wheel comes face to face with his victims. How that's helping them heal when we come right back. Welcome back to San Diego People. Today we are looking at a case study of how restorative justice works as we talk with a DUI offender and his victims. and how they're all coping with the aftermath of the crash. Joining us, Jonathan Rasmussen, the DUI offender, and Donna and Carl Snyder, the couple hit in the crash. Jonathan, let me begin with you. Tell me about the crash and what went through your mind the night that it happened. Set the stage for us.
Okay, well, it's actually, I was getting off of a graveyard shift, so it was in the morning time.
In early morning then?
Early
Okay.
morning, yeah. So I was just driving down the road. I had a couple of drinks with a burrito after work. And so I was driving back home that morning, the Sunday morning, and my reaction time was just delayed because of the drinks, obviously. And so when I hit them, it was out of the blue for me. You know, it was like, wow, I can't believe this is happening right now. First thought that went through my mind was I need to make sure they're okay, the people that I hit. So, I mean, I slipped out of my car, went over to make sure they're all right. They were responsive, you know, so that was a good thing.
Yeah.
They were okay, actually.
And Donna and Carl, from your vantage point, what went through your mind when this accident happened?
Well, it was a Sunday morning early, before 9 o'clock, and we were hit from a high rate of speed from the back, went up on a medium and down and up on the medium again, and then turned around the other side. And it was really difficult because at first Carl didn't respond. It was a little bit before he did.
We were hanging in the safety belts.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So I was sort of out of it at the time.
And so it was very difficult at the time, and we just, you know, didn't know what had happened. Actually, we didn't know it was a DUI until the Thursday after, when the district attorney called.
And what were the extent of injuries? How badly were both of you hurt?
Well, I developed a hernia later, but I was pretty well dazed. She kept trying to get me to respond, and I was sort of out of it at the time. And one of the interesting things was that I had rolled down the window because the airbags all went off. And I felt a hand reach in and ask my name. Discovered later it was this young man.
How about that?
Didn't know it was Jonathan until
So I was
police came.
concerned that he was concerned about me.
But he had a number of injuries that at first they had thought, you know, he was in a neck brace and all these things. It was pretty amazing when he checked out that there wasn't anything broken. His because of the airbags, the whole right or left arm was very, very swollen. They were sure that the hand was broken, and then the hernia came from the seat belt. That was known a couple of days later. So it was.
Let's advance the story a little bit now. Jonathan, after the accident, after you realized there were injuries, and obviously you obviously had an attorney and went to court and everything, tell me about that, and then take us into the point of where you found out about the program itself, the Restorative Justice Program.
So, yeah, I had gotten a probation officer assigned to me, and so she had let me know about there was such a program out there, and she let me know that I might be getting a call from somebody, and I was at work, and I got a call from Mary, and so I knew right away. She said, I'm from the Restorative Justice Program, and so I knew right away what it was about.
Yeah.
And of course, I was all for that.
Yeah.
I desperately wanted to meet Donna and Carl face-to-face in person. I knew that wasn't allowed by the court. But if this was a way as a means to be able to get in contact with them and actually, you know, be face-to-face and apologize face-to-face with them, then of course I was going to take that opportunity.
And Donna and Carl, what were you thinking when you first heard about that this program was available and that you may be meeting the person that hit you and that you may be trying to come together and get closer to each other and find out what each other really
Well, it
wanted
was
to know?
exciting, I thought, because we were looking forward to the opportunity to meet with Jonathan, and didn't know the program existed, but I thought, well, it could certainly be a very positive move for both of us.
The first thing that we heard was a letter about it that comes to the victims in June. And we didn't know, of course, you know, several people said, don't do it, you've been through enough, you're going through enough, et cetera, et cetera. And then we decided that we would at least write and ask about it, and we knew that unless he agreed, we wouldn't meet him anyway. But we had a lot of questions about whether it was someone that cared. Did this person have any feelings toward what he had done? I mean, we knew right away he was 23, and that made us very sorrowful that he was young and drunk, and so we debated. But then when the day we were debating about it, got information, and then when Carl had surgery on the 22nd of July, the next day we had a person there and talked to them about it, and they said, it sounds like you're ready. And so then after that, Jill from Restorative Justice came out and talked to us for a couple hours, and that was in September, and then in October 2nd we met, and the feeling was great from the time we met. We just felt like it was to be.
Yeah. Jonathan, what went through your mind when you first met the couple here?
I immediately went up to both of them and gave them a hug. First of all, let them know I was sorry and I'm glad that they're okay. You know, and the same fears is going through my mind too, of discontent with what do they think I'm some person who just cares? They probably think I'm just some young reckless driver, and I don't care about them, their feelings. I just want to get out of this, whatever, you know. So I wanted them to know that I cared. Did
you have a long conversation? Was it a brief meeting, or how was it?
There were the two from the Restorative Justice, and then
we met at a library in Chula Vista.
Yeah, and he came with his mother and girlfriend, and we had our daughter because she normally would have been in the back seat, and there were only 5 inches left in the back seat, so she was affected a lot also. So there were the three of us and the three of them, and the Restorative Justice people didn't need to intercede with anything. We just hit it off. He presented at first to Jonathan what our feelings were, and then he responded, and our feelings were of understanding. And we were very pleased when he said he and his girlfriend were never going to drink again. That meant so much to us because
we were grateful for the opportunity to be able to discuss it and to share our feelings rather than feeling as though they were two separate people and there was no connection. So we were grateful for that opportunity.
Jonathan, how have you benefited from this program?
Oh, the healing, the amount of healing mentally, that was the main thing for me, because it's hard to forgive yourself in a situation like that I was in, for me anyway. When you don't know if the other person, how they're thinking of you, and if they forgive you or not, you know. So the amount of healing that came from that was big for me. Yeah, and that was the biggest benefit, and also because of that too, just because of the whole, the drinking, the DUI and all that. I just haven't drank since then, you know, and it's completely absent from my life now. They brought me. I feel like God brought in my girlfriend into my life, and relationships have definitely grown closer because of the whole thing.
Aside from meeting with Donna and Carl and really getting to know each other personally, what other steps were taken that you were involved in this program? What other things were required for the program, other than just that meeting? I mean, was it ongoing? Did you talk to them periodically over a period of months, or?
No, it was just the one meeting. They talk to you and make sure you're ready beforehand. So what they would do is Mary and Jill from the Restorative Justice Program, they met up with me beforehand, you know, as kind of like a pre-meeting to make sure they know who I am, what my intentions were for the whole thing, and then from there, did they meet with you guys as well previously to our meeting?
Yeah, we had one meeting.
Right. Yeah, and then after that, then we all meet together.
Okay.
As one.
And what role do you play now with the program? Do you still talk to other kids or lecture other kids about what the program is all about?
I've spread it to friends and people who I know have gone through a similar thing with DUIs. I've spoken at one of the trainings, the Restorative Justice trainings, and I was at the summit in San Diego, where they actually showed the previous video that was on the San Diego News Center. So,
Donna, Carl, how have you grown inside from going through this program?
Tremendously. It's made all the difference in the world. We both received a lot of emotional healing, and I was having a lot of trouble being in a car, and even after meeting him, that also was improved greatly, because somehow it just made us feel like this person is going to be a good person. He's going to be used to better other people's lives now because of it, and which made it a little more worthwhile going through all that we have.
Would
And
you
we've really healed.
recommend this for other people who've been through similar situations?
We
as you
certainly
have?
would.
It's a good healing process, I think. Jonathan could be my grandson. And I'm grateful to see his dealing with the circumstances and the program and learning from it. And it seems to me that that's a great deal of positive progress on his part. And we're grateful to see it from that point of view, too.
Mm-hmm. And Jonathan, how have you grown? And I mean, this accident happened what, last January?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that's
That was February.
February.
Yeah.
And how have you grown? And how has it changed your outlook?
I think I've grown the most spiritually from it, to be honest. At the time, my dad was in church, and he was praying for me that God would reach His hand in my life and put me on the right path. And then during the praise and worship times when he said that prayer, and it was in the middle of that, dead in the middle of that time, was when the accident actually occurred. So I believe it was a hand from God. And so I felt the spiritual air behind it the whole time, and I've definitely grown a lot spiritually, and a lot of spiritual maturity has come out of it between me in all my relationships as well.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a great program, and it's worked for all three of you. We thank you for being with us today.
I think he had
Thank
a
you.
spiritual accent, too. I happen to be a clergyman also, and I can be grateful for his progress because that doesn't always happen.
Right.
And with this positive aspect, I think that's a deal of an accent for him as well.
It sounds like it.
And we're grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah.
And we care a lot lot him. We want to
we do.
know what he does with his life because we feel very positive about it.
It's definitely worked in this case for sure. All right, thank you all three for being with us. Great story. Thank you. Well, still ahead on San Diego People, does restorative justice have its limits? We're going to talk about what type of offenses can work the best coming up. Welcome back to San Diego People. We've talked about restorative justice, but what are the limits and can it really work long term? We're joined again by Mary Acosta, Program Manager of the Restorative Justice Mediation Program, and Matilda Casas, a Supervising Probation Officer from the San Diego Probation DUI Enforcement Unit. Thank you both for being with us again. So when we're talking about specific cases, which ones work the best or are more inclusive for this type program, Mary?
Well, victim-offender dialogue really can be used in any kind of case. Primarily where there is a victim of, again, as I mentioned before, property offense, burglary, theft, vandalism, graffiti sometimes, but also in the more serious cases as well where there is injury. Victim offender dialogues in particular are also offered through CDCR, the Victim Services Office of the prison system, in serious and violent cases where there might be a survivor or a family member of a murder. And so that's another level. So you can work with juveniles, adults in a variety of different cases, and more victim-oriented or victim-initiated cases in serious and violent cases.
Matilda, based on the time you've spent working with this program through the probation department, what are some of the benefits that you've seen?
I think one of the big benefits that I heard today, I just met the Schreiders this afternoon, and one of the first thing that she asked me, when can we see Jonathan again? That's huge for us because typically any time that there's a court order and there's no victim contact, that means that they're not supposed to have any contact. However, in this particular case, we asked the court to allow contact during the mediation program. Her asking me that she wants to keep in touch with him is huge. So obviously the benefits is definitely that. We have someone that we accomplish part of our mission, that we assisted the victim, and now she's satisfied with the outcome, and she wants to continue this relationship with this young man. And again, I'm not gonna put my life out there, but I truly believe that Jonathan, by meeting them and having gone through this this program, that he's really gonna take a second chance, and I want to believe that he will never reoffend, which is another part of our mission.
Yeah.
That, and our community is going to be safe by him not drinking and driving again.
It sounds like the program is definitely working then. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you both for being with us again.
Thank you.
And that's it for this morning's edition of San Diego People. Be sure to join us for the KUSI News at 6, 10, and 11. Have a great day. The last segment was short.